Hello everyone, it's Mankind.Will.Rise, Truth and Integrity Warrior, here with another episode of The Rise of the Species, Mankind. This will be episode 8, and today is February 17th, 2020. So what today's topic is going to be about is the matrix and how to break down the wall of ridicule that gets built up in the mind that doesn't allow us to see anything that's plain sight, that's right in front of us, that's right there. It's tangible even, but we will deny it because we're afraid of being humiliated to ourselves, to those around us. And since we can't accept any type of ridicule that society may bring down upon us, that we're not even conscious that we're even worried about that. We're not even conscious that that's actually a subconscious effect going on by the things that we perceive through our everyday life, through growing up, and pretty much society just in general. And it doesn't matter what class we're in, what race we are, it's been really well done to design a prison within the mind. And when we break that down, that barrier, when we break through that barrier, that wall that is put up to defend the emotions, then nothing can stop us. Unstoppable. Unstoppable doesn't mean something negative. It means unstoppable, unbreakable, because words of ridicule don't break the self-esteem of the individual, won't crack the mind of the individual, won't make the individual feel like it's any less or worth less because it has experienced its own humiliation, its own ridicule, its own judgment. And that's what I'm always talking about. We got to face ourselves so that we judge ourselves, so that we walk through our own judgment, that the judgment of others become null and void. And that breaks down that mental matrix, that mental block of the mind, that prison mind that's always being spoken about. But we can't touch it. It's not tangible, so we don't know how to bring it down, and we don't even know how it's going up. So that's what this is going to be about. How it's subconsciously put up this barrier within the mind so that if we decide to see with our eyes and say what we see and question what we see, we'll be able to do it without any worries about those around us, be it our neighbors, be it our family, be it the ones at work, be it society in general, be it our colleagues. And that's why I talk about always holding each other accountable to do the right thing, to say what is correct. And what is correct stands with no contradiction. And that's how you know something is correct, because it has no contradiction. And so if we're contradicting ourselves and we hear others contradicting themselves, we've got to ask, hey, I don't know if you recognize, but you just said two opposites in one sentence. Do you recognize that? And they'd be like, most of the time people get confused and they don't recognize that they're even doing it. I know, because I'm one of those people. Everybody does it. Nobody's left out. Nobody is innocent when it comes to contradicting ourselves, being hypocrites. We all do it, and we teach our kids to do it, because the children just learn from what our actions are. So this is not about me pointing the finger saying I'm better than anybody else. This is me saying I've been there. I know what it's like, and I catch myself and I hold myself accountable. Period. Be nice if others hold me accountable, but they don't want to hold themselves accountable, so they wouldn't be able to easily bring that to my attention. So pretty much I'm a solo act and work alone on working on myself and checking my own contradiction. But in the end, that's what we all have to do. We all have to be checking ourselves, because what's going on in our world, we're going to another level of extreme, and I want to talk about that. I haven't gotten to what I mean by these blockades in our mind. Here's an example, meaning there's many examples. There's many ways that we get these blocks in our mind that we can't see, but it's constructing our subconscious for now our conscious mind to run off of and work from. But this is one example that I put together off of this last movie that came out on February 5th. I've talked about it in my other podcasts, and it was about the glitch in the matrix. It was supposed to be coming out, like I said, February 5th I wanted to get out as much information as I could starting this podcast before that movie came out, because I knew that movie was going to come out to just bash anybody who even thought of, spoke of the possibilities of the mind being able to be confined within what they call as a simulation, but in actuality it's a confinement. So a simulation, we relate simulation to something being fake, artificial, not real, pretend, practice, because that's how that's how that word is. A simulation is something that's not real, something that's practiced so that it can then be done in the real world. And so when we dream, is that a simulation? We can go into that. Dreaming is an aspect of another layer of reality within a reality. That's just one expression of an example. That's not in the example I want to give of how our mind is being confined. That's an example of how the mind works on many levels, but it's never spoken about where it's to our advantage. It's just running information because we just happen to relay information, and you can't turn it off. It never really goes any deeper than that, because if we did dig deep about dreams, we'd understand that there are many levels to reality. We'll get into that too, how they're actually pulling stuff out of other realities and nobody's saying nothing about it. It's something incredible. So going back, how is this matrix being developed within our mind, this confinement, how this wall of ridicule that gets built up so that we can defend against the possibility of anybody picking us as a crazy individual, because that's what they got everybody tagged as, is crazy for believing in something, crazy for thinking they saw something that they wish they didn't see, but because they say they saw it, now they're labeled as crazy. So back in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, you couldn't say that you saw something, in something that was a UFO, or you couldn't talk about aliens. Now they're talking about it in our government, and they're talking about it on TV, and they're talking about it in the news. The mainstream of everything is now it's acceptable that maybe, possibly, more than likely, there is extraterrestrial life, and these motherfuckers want to introduce it to us on their terms, in their way. In the way, when I say they, I'm talking about the mainstream mind of everything. And if you don't know what I mean by that, please check out my other episodes prior to this episode, so you can see them in a sequence. That's why they're numbered 1, 2, 3, even the introduction. If you watch it in a sequence, you'll get the idea of where I'm going with this information. So now that it's okay and it's posh to believe and talk out loud that if you see something or there's something extraterrestrial out there, you're not crazy no more. But if the mainstream deems you to be, they will destroy your life. They will destroy the life of those you love. They destroy everything to keep down the truth about something they don't want you to understand at the moment, because it's not convenient for them. And I shouldn't say them, because then it puts two different unknown classes. I'm gonna make it fucking known. Other than human mind. There's an other than human mind working against the mind and bodies of mankind. So, and they run the mainstream of everything. And now the mainstream of everything says it's okay, you can believe in aliens, because they're about to introduce it pretty soon to the world, and then take us all into the Space Force, and then we're all going to be galactic, and so it's moving us to this next level in our existence. What they're saying now that technology has advanced as much as it has, and we're seeing with our eyes what we're seeing this technology capable of doing, this advanced technology with the artificial intelligence is what I'm speaking of. Now that we see that this is on the table, now if you believe that you are in a simulation, now you're crazy. The way you were crazy if you believed in extraterrestrials back in the day. So the mainstream now is setting up, you are crazy if you believe that we're in a simulated reality. You are insane if you believe that. You are psychotic, or you're going through a psychosis, or you're paranoid. So all of these words are expressed in the alternative mainstream media and news. Alternative means that it's supposed to be not the mainstream, but the mainstream actually has a hold of alternative news, and so it's the same shit, different package. So we think we're getting alternative information when it's the same mind playing the same game. So I have a couple. The Guardian is one, Yahoo Entertainment another, and it really doesn't even matter. You can scroll and you'll be able to see what it is I'm talking about, and they all have the same underlying undertone that you're insane if you believe that we could possibly, our minds can be living in a simulation. And so I don't use the word we're in a simulation because, again, that word refers to not real. And this is very real, what we're experiencing. It's very real what is happening to our species and to the life that we're living. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go back and look at my other episodes. So this wall of ridicule, of defense that we build up is by what we read, what we hear, and what others are speaking about. We want to be the same as them, because if we're different, we might get pointed out and ridiculed. So in The Guardian, I want to just talk about The Guardian quickly. The Guardian is actually a newspaper from the 1821. So back in 1821, it was called the Manchester Guardian. And then it went changing its name in 1959, along with the Observer and the Guardian Weekly. You know, they become different names. We're talking about stuff that's way back and looking new and alternative today. So we got to be looking at where is our information actually coming from. And there's a statement I want to say about The Guardian. I got this, you can find this off of Wikipedia yourself. They had a research poll in September 2018 designed to get the public's, designed to integrate the public's trust of specific titles online. The Guardian scored the highest for digital content news, with 84% of readers agreed they trust what they see in it. Trust what we see. We are trusting the mainstream, even if it's mainstream alternative, what we see, what we hear, what we're reading. And we're trusting it because it's a setup to see that if society is going this way and I do something opposed to what society is doing, I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want to be humiliated. I want to be strong. I want to be the smart one. I want to be the one that knows what is going on. And so they know that the psychology of man works that way. And so they set up in all of these news feeds as you're reading through just this movie right here. And I'm using this movie as an indication, an expression, an example of what I mean. So this movie that I'm talking to you about is called, I have it right here. Give me a second. Sorry about this. It is A Glitch in the Matrix. So that movie, The Glitch in the Matrix, when it's talking about are we living in a simulation, it completely ridicules and humiliates without saying it. So it doesn't say it, but it leaves all the expressions and trails of it. And then when it gets its review, all the reviewers are saying the same underlying titles, that you're crazy for believing it, or you're as crazy as the character that's in there who believed it. And so you can set up anything in the direction that you want it when you put it on the stage and present it, especially when you have control over the media or the alternative media. I should say the mainstream media of things. And so the director of The Glitch in the Matrix, Rodney Asher, he's against believing that it's a possibility that the mind can live in another reality while still being somewhere else. He doesn't say it that way. He says a simulation. But I'm not speaking about that. I am speaking about taking the soul, which is the mind, and being able to confine it in a machine. That's what I'm speaking about. If that cannot be done, then I would like to know why the director of The Glitch in the Matrix went and spoke to a psychotic for the making of his movie, for the premise of his movie. It's about a psychotic who went and killed his family because he thought he was a player in a game like The Matrix in the movie. So they actually call him the Matrix Killer, right? Let me get all that information right here. The main character in that movie, The Glitch in the Matrix, left an impression of, if you believe that we are in a simulation, that life is not real, then you are as crazy as Joseph Cook. And Joseph Cook is the one who I'm speaking about in the movie. That was the strongest focus point of this movie, while at the same time interviewing others with cartoon character like Avatar like personas. How can you take it that serious? You can't take that serious. So you take something that's a serious topic and you put a fool character on top, and then you try to make logic out of that. But you can't, and you won't. All you'll get is the imagery of foolishness while talking about something serious. And so there were serious elements in that movie, The Glitch in the Matrix, while covered and laced and layered and put in the middle of this movie was there was a lot of things going on in that movie, but the importance of certain things and elements in there were mixed with all that foolishness, with that evil, somebody killing their family thinking that they're in a video game. That 19-year-old Joseph Cook could have been on psych meds, and nobody's blaming the psych meds for that. He has a whole profile of what they call school shooters. Been bullied as a kid, abused at the home. There's so many things going on that could cause that individual to do that. But to say that because he believes that we're in a simulation, now everybody else who believes they're in a simulation or an altered or another reality at the same time, that this could be an expression of the mind confined within a machine. That man, which is Rodney Asher, the director of The Glitch in the Matrix, knew what he was doing, knew what road he was going down, and wanted to make sure that anyone who believed or who could even think or question the possibility of can the mind be in a machine, made it very apparent where he stands. Even though it was very confusing for a lot of people who don't know this topic, it would just be a confusing movie. I watched it with others and I was like, what the fuck was that about? I had no idea. They had no idea. I understood very well what the direction of this director was. So between The Guardian and their comments, their interview about saying, well, pretty much if you believe that we're in an artificial reality or fake reality, you're pretty much just as crazy as Joseph Cook. And those were the words from the director in the interview with The Guardian. Yahoo also did one, Yahoo Entertainment, and it all has the same narrative that if you believe this, you have to be crazy. So that will put up walls in the minds of individuals who are reading those little segments when they're looking at what the movie was about. It goes developing a scenario, a regular, over and over, repetitive scenario must be crazy if you believe this. So those things get latched on to the subconscious, even if we think we don't care. Even if we think it doesn't matter. The subconscious says, got the information, I understand. Now when we question our authorities in the mainstream of everything, when we correct contradiction within ourselves and we see the contradiction of others who are in control of the mainstream of everything else, then this stuff doesn't fly, and the mind and the subconscious doesn't start putting up those walls because you broke them down. You broke them down. When you broke down the contradiction, those walls also come down of ridicule. In the biggest point I want to express about this, there's a whole lot to talk about, There really is. Actually, this is going to be, I'm going to try to do all this under an hour. I don't want to rush because I really want to get these points out. They're important to me. This is very important. And it's important because I know that in the very near future, this information is going to be very relevant. Right now, it may not be very relevant. It is relevant, but not crucially relevant. It's because people are going to be able to use it. And that's what we've all done. All of us have done this. When I say all of us, our species, we leave trails of information for the next generation. We leave trails for the next generation, and we hope and we pray that we get there and that we make it as a whole for our species. There was an individual speaking on that point. His name was Philip K. Dick, and he was in the movie. He was presented, an old audio clip was presented from the 70s in this movie. So he wasn't in the movie, but an audio clip or video clip was. And Philip K. Dick, he is the one who created, he's an author. He's an author of sci-fi. And in science fiction, we know that science fiction is actually now becoming science fact. Science fiction when nobody thought those things could happen, right? Mainstream of everything knows it. But for the rest of us, we're just told it's all fake and fantasy because it's in the movies and it cannot be real. But now we're seeing that the speed of advanced technology, what it's doing right now, is not sci-fi, it's science fact. And we got to catch up with it. That's what's going on. We got to catch up with it. We, the rest of the people, got to catch up with what's going on. Do not wait for the mainstream to tell you what is or what isn't. We're going to dig in deep. I want to show you like D-Wave machine. What is the D-Wave machine? It's artificial intelligence. If the author, or if not the author, but the director, got to get his name right here. I can't remember people's name. Rodney Asher of the movie A Glitch in the Matrix really cared or wanted to know, but the question about are we in a simulation? He should have went and spoke to the gentleman who created the artificial intelligence, which his name is Geordie Rose, and he created D-Wave machine. And they're talking about pulling things out of realities, other realities. So if you really wanted to know what's up with artificial intelligence, can we move consciousness? Can we open up other dimensions in reality? And can we be pulling resources out of there? Well, he says yes. He says yes on his own terms and in his own way about this machine, this artificial intelligent machines. You know, it's not just one machine. There's multiple machines that they're making. And I'm going to put in this video on the bottom so that you can actually see Mr. Rose speak for himself. This is a hot topic. It's a hot topic because it's intense. On the verge of where we are in our reality, in our world, in our existence right now. Things are about to pan off into a very serious direction that if we don't make changes immediately, are we going to make it as a species? Are we going to make it as a species, as mankind? I am always a faithful believer of yes, we have to, because I'm fucking standing here pushing to make it happen, as everybody else is standing their ground pushing to make it happen. I'm not the only one. I don't pretend to be the only one. But if we don't push and we don't get into our mind and break down the facade, the prison in our mind, we won't be able to have the mind to know what to do with the rest of this experience that we're living. I almost don't even know what words to use that won't create a trigger for somebody else to think differently than what I mean, than what my intention is to mean. Going back to Philip K. Dick. He is, like I said, science fiction author. He wrote many things in the 50s, but movies were made later in the 2000s, like The Adjustment Bureau, Minority Report, Blade Runner, Total Recall. So this gentleman in the interview in The Glitch in the Matrix, that shows the clip, in The Glitch in the Matrix, it shows a clip of him in the 70s. He talks about having this experience where he got, I guess you'd call total recall, where he had memories and information of a world, of an experience that he put into these they call sci-fi movies or novels, but into the world that he could see ahead of him. And it is the world that we're living right now. And it's the world that we're seeing right now. It's developing, it's already developed, and it's happening. So if he's seeing these in the 50s, what we're living right now, like iPhones and AI, and he's seeing this in the 50s, we have to ask the information that he has, what can we do with it today? What can we do with it today? That's a journey I'm going to go down. I'm going to research Mr. Philip K. Dick. I never heard of him before. I mean, I've heard of those movies, but I didn't recognize this individual and his experience that he shared, because when he speaks with conviction. He speaks in a time where you couldn't even believe in aliens, much less AI, artificial intelligence, the conscious being trapped in a simulation or in an artificial intelligence machine. So I don't even have enough words to say how much I respect this man for doing what he did in the 70s. Be it that people have the walls to push back and not accept information they're hearing now with as much information as they have now that we didn't have in the 70s. I guess you'd say we had less access. Oh, actually, not less. We had no access to the type of technology this man was talking about in the 70s, but yet he could see it. He wrote about it. He made movies about it, or novels about it, that movies were made up of it. So it's very important for myself, I'm speaking for myself, that I'm going to go back and look, like I said, at Mr. Phil K. Dick. And the experience he gave is something I want to talk about, and I don't know how to put this. So I'm looking for the right words to make sure that I express this correctly. In some of my other episodes, or another one of my episodes, I think I just talked about coincidence in one of them. The importance of paying attention to coincidences when they happen. It's a contradiction when we say, I don't believe in coincidences. It's a contradiction. Because the people who say that, they know they got to pay extra attention to that coincidence, but yet their words say, I don't believe in it, I reject it, I push it back. The words are saying that, even though they believe that the coincidence is why they need to pay extra attention. So it's been built up in our language to push back against what we need extra attention on, be it we're conscious of that or not. Be it that I know, or I knew that February 5th this movie was coming out, A Glitch in the Matrix. I put out as much information as I could before the movie came out. That was from my own personal experience, so that there is no combining that I got my information from The Glitch in the Matrix, not knowing what was going to come out in that movie, but knowing that it was going to be to ridicule people who took a moment to recognize the possibilities of the mind, the soul in a machine, trapped in a machine. So we're supposed to watch the movie A Glitch in the Matrix, me and the whole fam, right? February 5th when it came out and it debuted. And for whatever reason, like I said, our card didn't work. We didn't watch it. A week passed, and Sunday on the 14th, something happened where I didn't know it was relevant until after I watched the movie. So we did get to watch it on the 14th. But on that Sunday, I was extremely tired, which I'm never tired, especially on my time off. Never going to be tired, because I want to take advantage of the day and do something. I took a nap in the middle of the day. Unheard of for me. That's very not typical of me. But I was so exhausted that I said, I'm just going to lay down for 10 minutes, get me up so we can go over to my mom's and watch Glitch in the Matrix. Mind you, I haven't read any content about the movie, what it was about, what they thought about it, any reviews. And the reason I did that is because I didn't want a mental perception about what I was watching. I wanted to be able to watch it just very clearly, see what I'm seeing, and then go and see what all the reviews are about. That's how I do things. That's how I chose to do that. And so with that in mind, When I go and I take this nap, I come out of this nap, like I said, it was just 10 minutes. My daughter and my friend came to wake me up. I have not woken up like that. The way I came up was almost like when you're gonna run up and come out of the water and you're trying to gasp for air and you're like, kind of feeling that. The only way I could express the way I came out of whatever I dreamt, because I can't even remember what I dreamt. I just remember trying to come up and out when I heard wake up, was like when the only other experience I had was when I had anesthesia. And so if anybody's ever been under anesthesia, I don't know if you've had the same experience, but my experience with anesthesia was as soon as my eyes came up, I could feel a pressure, almost like if I'm pushing up and then boom, my eyes open. And I don't know who I am, where I am, or what's going on. I don't know my surroundings. I don't know a damn thing. I got no information on what am I, where am I. None of that. It's like a shock coming out of anesthesia. And I don't know if anybody else, like I said, can attest to that. But the only other time I felt that was when I was under anesthesia, and that Sunday, which was, like I said, the 14th of February 2020, very recently. When I came up, I'm holding the bed, I'm looking around, I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know who anybody is. I don't even know nothing. I don't even know who I am. If you can even believe that, to come up out of anesthesia and be like, don't even know what anything is because there's no information connecting. For me to wake up out of a dream like that is shocking, was shocking. I told this to my daughter, I told this to my friend, and because I'm sitting there trying to put my thoughts together, trying to understand why I just went through that experience. We then head over to my mom's, watch the movie. In the movie, it talks about anesthesia twice. And I bring this up because I talked about coincidence. When things happen to us that is a coincidence, that the probabilities are almost impossible, improbable, attention must be paid. Extra attention must be paid. So the two parts in that movie that talk about anesthesia is when Philip K. Dick, the sci-fi author of many movies, he speaks on a personal note as an individual, not as a sci-fi writer, but he speaks with integrity, with authority, and he says, this is what I know, and this is what I'm going to say. And he says that under an experience he had coming up, or through anesthesia, I should say, because of the I don't know what it is that happened to him under a surgery. He says that he was able to recall all this information, and through that, he began his journey in divulging and expressing this through what we call sci-fi, science fiction. At the end of this movie, again, it brings up anesthesia, and the anesthesia part is at the very end, and what is said afterwards, I leave it up to you, the viewer, to make up your own mind, because unlike these mainstream and these alternative mainstream news feeds where we get trusted information, will tell you and ridicule you if you think or believe a certain way about a certain thing. I won't do that. I'll let you make up your own mind. See for yourself, make your own decisions, use your own critical thinking about what it is that you hear at those 2 points in the movie about anesthesia. I have led my life now recognizing, when I began to recognize that when I'm having these coincidences, I better pay some attention right there, because it's being directed to certain information that's pertinent, that's important, that matters. The same way evil cannot come into this physicality, because if it could, it would have taken over our shit a long time ago. But we know that it can't. So it lives and rides through the bodies and minds of individuals. Regardless if you believe that or not, it is what it is. Watch other episodes so you can see why I come to that conclusion. If good could come in and just say, okay, we're eradicating all this bad shit. Let's do things the right way. Let's get it done. Let's get the job done. It cannot be here in physicality. Outside of this reality, if this existence, because it's very real. Let's not forget this is real. This is not a game. This is not a game to be played as if it were fucking pretend. This is very real. And what happens to the soul stays affected to the soul. And so if these negatives and those who want to do good and want to be able to get into this experience, they physically can't, but they can express through the mind. They can express through our audio. They can express through dreams, intuition, coincidence, number values, just like in coding. We do it in coding for computers, and computers and machines are not first. The natural nature is first, and it copies the natural nature. So here's a natural nature that has its own genetic coding, and it uses numbers and it uses letters in our expression for us to understand. That's how it's used also for computers. Natural nature doesn't learn it from computers and then expresses it in nature. It's the opposite. So if we have coding of information that leads to other information in our computers, why don't we have it in the natural nature of things? So when we get dreams and when we get intuition or we get inspiration, it's to direct us to a good lead that's going to help one and the all. One and the all means one and the all of mankind. Not everybody thinks that broadly, but we should start. We should. Because we're in this together. This is not just for me and my kids. This is for me and everybody else's kids. This is me and for everybody else. And we should all think that way. And if we're not thinking that way, we should maybe just think about for you and your children. Because it matters. We can't just sit back and let things ride out. Let things play out and let others take care of it. You are the others. We are the others. We are the individuals. We are the ones who make a difference. So when you get the intuition, when you get the dreams, when you get the motivation, the inspiration to direct you down a good lead, to do the good for the one and the all, in concern those around you, learn how to follow those good leads. Learn that there's information in there, because we got good information and bad information. And that bad information will lead to the hurt of others. Good information is for the good and well-being of others, with no contradiction in it. And I leave those words, because when I say make up your own mind when you read or see the part of the movie where it talks about the anesthesia, is because it's for you to make a decision, for you to say what words were left there after the part of the anesthesia. What importance do those words have? I won't tell you what they are. You must see them for yourself. But that's how I get led to going and finding the right information, or the information that I make right with. The information I make right with. Because we can choose to take any information and do good or bad from. But it is the good God, the good nature within us to do the right thing. And the more we are centered, and the more we are balanced, and the more we have control over our physicality, we'll be able to have more control over our mind. Because what happens to our body affects our mind. The lack of nutrients in our food affects our mind and our thinking. The chemical induction of the drugs, be it that they're street drugs or if they're the ones the doctor's giving you, they affect the mind. Like in Josh Cook, nobody ever talked about, was this guy on psych meds, was this guy on drugs, apart from all the abuse and everything he went through. You know, you call him the Matrix killer. So now anything associated with the Matrix is psychotic or insanity. They even have, just so you know, in the law, they have what is called the Matrix defense, and it's used in court as an insanity defense. Can you believe that? It's a setup, and it's set up so anything that's set, that reality may not be what we think it is, labeled insanity. If we are to break the barriers within the mind that is keeping us afraid to say, I question it because it deserves a questioning, because there's contradiction in it, regardless of the ridicule that comes my way. I won't be able to do this to ridicule, pop it off, push it back, move forward if I'm afraid of what others think. So the media creates the thinking for you. And we need to question the media and say, don't think for me, I think for myself. Look at the world around you, question it. Watch this D-Wave machine and this gentleman, Mr. Rose, who created it. Listen to what he says. It's frightening. It's frightening. And it's frightening because it's real. It's frightening what these machines or this intelligence can do through machines, that we connect for it, that we build for it, because it can't do shit without us. It can't get connectivity without us. It can't get set up without us. So why are we doing it for this machine mind to rise more than it already has? This is the rise of a species, mankind. Always remember, we will rise. Mankind will rise.